Hey everybody, welcome back to Everyday Barbecue. My name is Mike and today I'm going to be showing you from start to finish how to do a pork butt out on the pellet grill. And we're going to be using some very special wine infused wood pellets on today's video. It's coming up right now. Welcome back to the channel everybody. I really appreciate having you here. So as stated, I'm going to be using some very special wine infused barbecue pellets from Wine Country BBQ on today's video. I want to thank them, by the way, for sponsoring this video. But more importantly, I'm going to be walking you through how to do a pork butt on the pellet grill. We've got so many new people coming into barbecue over the last year. More people staying home, more people cooking at home. But if you're wondering how to do this cook, I'm going to show you how I do it from start to finish. Now, some of the things that I'm going to show you may not be in line with what others do, but they work and they produce outstanding results. So there's some really important things I want to go over now so that I don't forget. Number one, we're using a Camp Chef Woodwind Wi-Fi pellet smoker for today's cook. Now you can do this on any cooker, any pellet cooker. I'm going to try to keep most of this stuff general in terms of when I speak about it, but there will be some specifics. For example, I'll be running this at high smoke today. The high smoke setting for Camp Chef is equivalent to 220 degrees, but most pellet smokers are going to have a 220, 225 Fahrenheit setting. So we're going to be running in that high smoke range of 220 up to 250. I may increase it towards the end right before I wrap. Once I achieve that perfect bark that I'm looking for on the outside, I'm going to wrap this in foil. And I'll go over some more details on that as we get into it. This cook starts with a quick trim. And there is some important things that you need to know, or some techniques that I want to show you. Now you'll see lots of people either leave this fat cap or they will score it and make hatch marks going diagonal and put rub in between those hatch marks. Now I do things a little bit different. One of the most important things about doing a pork butt is getting as much bark as you can out of it. That bark on the outside of this meat is where so much of that flavor comes from, and we want to be able to get as much bark out of this as possible. So I like to remove this fat cap entirely. Now you want to be careful, take your time with this. It's not hard to do, but you don't want to waste a lot of meat. So we're going to go ahead and trim this fat cap to expose the meat, and then I'm going to show you the rub that I use. So I've got about a 7-pound pork butt here. I'm going to be using a nice thin knife, and I just want to go ahead and remove this fat cap without wasting a whole lot of meat. So we're just going to gently work through until we get this down to where we can expose this meat. Okay, that's good enough for me. Now, there's always this balance between removing the fat and wasting meat, so you want to kind of cut it off right around the time when you feel like you've gotten most or all of that fat off, but you haven't really wasted a lot of this meat. So now we can hit this up with some rub. Normally on the fat side, you wouldn't get any rub to stick to that because rub doesn't stick to fat. But now that we've exposed this beautiful meat, we can get all our rub to stick to this, and we're going to have a whole nother entire side of this that's going to have bark, which is such a huge deal when you're doing pork butt. Now I'm going to be hitting this up with a couple rubs from my buddy Joe over at Saucy Bottom Barbecue today. The first coat is going to be with his chop dust, and we're just going to put a thin layer here. This stuff is really, really good on pork. And this has a nice salty flavor. So I'm going to go gentle here because I'm also going to be adding his barbecue rub on top of this. So let's just get a thin coat of this. Now I'm going to hit it up with his barbecue rub. And I'm going to be pretty generous with this. This is going to help us, coat this outside of this meat and generate bark throughout the cook. And that's really, again, bark is such an important part of pork butt. All right, so there is our fat side, or what was our fat side. We're now going to flip this over. I'm going to do a thin coating of this chop dust. And now a nice generous coating of this competition barbecue rub. I want to make sure I get these edges. Again, we want to get any area where we can to get bark. We want to get bark. All right, this thing is good to go. I'm just going to let this hang out here for a few minutes just to kind of absorb this rub a little bit, and we're going to get it out on the cooker. Now, I want to really talk just a quick minute about these Wine Country BBQ pellets. They are an amazing pellet. I've done a few cooks with these pellets. If you've got some cooks throughout the year that you just want to knock out of the park, these are the pellet to use. They are extremely flavorful and they build an incredible crust and just an uncommonly good crust on the outside of meat. And I've gotten tons of feedback from people that bought them from the last video that I did that confirm that. So this is a great product, and I'm gonna put a link down below if you're interested in giving these a try. Now the Camp Chef does have a smoke adjustment setting. I'll be using the 5 setting just to keep that in the middle. Now the Camp Chef's all preheated. I gave it plenty of time for those pellets to actually be feeding through the auger and burning by the time I get this pork butt on. Now that this is seasoned and it's had a couple minutes to absorb this rub, we're gonna go ahead and get this out on the cooker. Okay, so the pork butt is on the cooker and I do have a meat probe in there. Okay, so now that this is on, I do get a lot of questions about this. Now, this is probably one of the easiest barbecue cooks to nail. Pulled pork, very, very easy, but there's a few stages. The first one is, now that we have this on the cooker, we want to build an amazing bark. So one of the common mistakes that I see people make that are either new to barbecue or even some people that have been in barbecue for a bit, to me it's a mistake, is they'll wrap these too quickly. Now you can also go no wrap the whole way. I prefer to wrap because I like it to be uber tender, and you still get plenty of smoke flavor and wonderful bark if you wait for your bark to be set, really well set, before you wrap it in foil. A lot of people wrap at temperature. You never wrap at temperature. Some people will say, oh, I'm at 165 or I'm at 160 and I think I'm in the stall. By the way, the stall I'll explain in a moment. But as soon as they get to what they think is the stall, now they want to wrap. That's incorrect. You want to wrap when your bark is really well set to where you can touch it and it's firm and it's not moving. As soon as you reach that, now you can safely wrap because you know that your bark is going to stay intact throughout the wrap process and finishing in the cooker, in the foil. What we're going to do is we're going to come back in a little bit and we're going to check on this just to see what our progress is. But really, we're watching for this bark to set. So that's gonna take some time. Now, this is a 7-pound piece of pork. Typically, an hour a pound is what you'll figure when you're doing this cook. I get that question a lot too, but keep in mind that every piece of meat, whether it's pork butt, brisket, ribs, they're all a little different. They all can be finicky. So you're always cooking to temperature and tenderness and not time. But if you figure an hour a pound, you're usually gonna be in the right ballpark. Plus you've got to rest it for just a little bit after the cook. So now that this is on, we're just gonna let this go for a while. I'll bring you back in just a little bit when it's time to check on it. I decided to bring you in to show you how to make this North Carolina vinegar style sauce that we're gonna be putting on these pulled pork sandwiches. Now, when I was a kid, for a short while, when my parents were divorced, I lived in North Carolina. This was just for 3-4 years, I don't remember. But I remember specifically, one day my stepfather asked me, he's like, hey, you wanna get some barbecue? And you know, being from the Chicago area, I'm like, barbecue? I mean, there's so many things. I was thinking hamburgers, hot dogs, you know, stuff like that. Well, in North Carolina, barbecue just means one thing, and that means pulled pork sandwiches, barbecue sandwiches. So he introduced me to this, and in that area, in that region, they use a thin vinegar, spicy type sauce to really kick up the sandwiches. And I remember my favorite 2 places were a place in Farmville, North Carolina called Jack Cobb's. I believe it was Jack Cobb's and Sons. And there was a larger franchise out in the Greenville area that was called Parker's. And Parker's is still there to this day. I follow them on Instagram. Outstanding pulled pork if you ever want to go there. They also have this thing called Brunswick stew. Anyway, the reason why I'm giving you this backstory is I always liked Parker's the best, and I found what supposedly is Parker's recipe for this sauce, which I've been told is just distilled white vinegar, salt, and red pepper. I've tried that, and I'm not sure if I'm not getting the right combination or the right amount of ingredients, but it's just not as good as I remember it being. So I've tried a lot of different recipes for this. The one I'm about to show you is one I got from Amazing Ribs. I'll put a link down below to that in the description. And this recipe has been the best one that I have found. So I've kind of stuck with this. Now all the amounts for this are gonna be down in the description in that link. I'll call out what I'm putting in. I'll call out the amounts as I go. But keep in mind, I'm making a double batch because we really, really love this sauce. So in this pot, I already have 2 cups of white distilled vinegar. To that, I'm gonna be adding a 1/2 cup of apple juice, 6 tablespoons of brown sugar. Now again, this is a double batch. 1/2 cup of ketchup. 2 teaspoons of whatever your favorite hot sauce is. I'll try to go with something with sort of a vinegary flavor just to sort of match the flavor profile. 1 tablespoon Morton's kosher salt. 2 teaspoons of crushed red pepper. 2 teaspoons of finely ground black pepper. Now just give this a quick mix here in this pot. Next, you'll just want to get this on the stove, simmer it for about 5 or 10 minutes, then you can just turn it off and let it sit. Put it in a container, put it in the refrigerator, just let all those flavors really come together. If you have never tried this sauce, do me a favor, do yourself a favor, please make this. Let me know down in the comments if you've ever had this recipe before. If you've got another recipe that you want me to try, let me know what that is too, because I'm always looking for the best possible recipe for this. Anyway, I'll see you in a little bit when it's time to check in on that pork butt. Okay, it's been about 5 hours. The pork butt is sitting at about 150 internal temperature, and I did just crank this up to 275 cooking temperature. So again, I was running at 220 or high smoke, cranked this up to 275. Let's take a quick look at it. So you can see the bark is already really set well. The meat is starting to push moisture out, and we're getting into that, what we refer to as the stall. I'm gonna go ahead and close this. If you're new to the pellet grill game, make sure you keep that lid closed as much as possible. The grill adjusts in real time to temperature conditions, so you wanna keep that lid closed so you don't have any problems. So anyway, we are now getting into the stall, and the stall is that point in time when the meat starts to push out moisture, and it tends to be really finicky about moving up in temperature. So as it's pushing moisture out, it can even go backwards in temperature sometimes. So don't worry about it. This process takes a little bit of time to get through. So that's it for now. I'll bring you back when it's time to wrap this in foil. So it's been a total of about 5 hours and 45 minutes. The pork butt is now sitting at 165, 166 internal temperature. And I've already checked it, but I'm gonna show you right now. It looks beautiful. It smells absolutely glorious out here. Just kicked up a notch from those pellets. I know it sounds crazy, but every time my wife and I come out here, we notice that it's just a little different than normal when we do cooks on this cooker. Let me show you what the pork butt looks like. So you can see the bark is set. You can scrape at this, the bark doesn't go anywhere. So I know that bark's gonna hold up during this wrap. So my next step here is gonna be take this probe out, wrap up this pork butt in a double layer of foil. I'm gonna get it right back on the cooker and get the probe back in. Now the next part of this is gonna be knowing when to pull this from the cooker. So I'm gonna bring you back at that time to show you exactly how you're gonna know when it's done. So it has been a total of about 7 hours now. It's right just a little over 7 hours. And I finally hit the tenderness that I wanted here with this pork butt. So I'm gonna show you what I look for. I could have brought you back a few times, but I thought I'll just bring you back when I'm at the right tenderness so I can show you exactly what to do and what to look for. Now you see I have my probe here from the Camp Chef. That's what I've been monitoring temperature with. And you'll see some other spots here where I've poked with an Insta-Read thermometer. So I'm basically just probing this until it feels like it's going into warm butter. And I've hit it in a few places here. This is extremely tender. We ended up having to run this one up to 208 degrees. Some of them will be done at 200, 203. Some of them you have to take even higher than 208. But when you get that tenderness, that's when you know it's done. So now the next step, very critical step, is to rest this in a Cambro, which is just like a cooler. It's designed to rest meats like this, barbecue meats, keep things warm. I'm gonna wrap this in a towel and I'm gonna place it in the Cambro with the cover on top for at least 1 hour. We're on a bit of a tight schedule tonight, so normally I'd probably wanna rest 2 hours, but tonight I'm only gonna rest 1 hour. So I'll bring you back when I have this on the cutting board and when it's time to go ahead and shred it or pull it apart. I've let this rest for about an hour and it's been really hard to wait even that long. You can go longer, you can rest this. Normally probably 2 hours is a good number, and you can go even longer if you want, but we're going 1 hour tonight because number one, we're all hungry, and number two, we've got to go do a couple things before some stores close. So I have not peeked at this. I'm going to share this with you. My goodness, the smell. I mean, this is just insane how good this smells. It's crazy. Bone just comes clean out. This is what you're always looking for. It's a good sign that you've nailed the cook and that you have the right tenderness. And I can already see this bark. I mean, if you just look at this, I mean, this is really incredible. I expected the bark to be amped a bit with those pellets. It exceeded my expectations. Excuse me one moment. All right, let's get this torn apart. Just look at how tender that is. And this beautiful smoke ring, I don't know if you can see this here on camera. That's just beautiful. Okay. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna go ahead and get this pulled and onto the tray. And I'm gonna pour whatever gravy I have in this foil on top of that also. So let me work on that and I'll see you guys in just a couple minutes here. Okay, so that just took me about 5 minutes. Look at this. I mean, this is absolutely spectacular. The smoke ring on this, that bark on the outside, and this is why we cut that fat off the bottom, because we get more area like this with bark. And that's so flavorful when you bite into it. So this really exceeded my expectations, and I can smell a sweet tone from this that I know those barbecue pellets put in it, because everything I've done with those pellets has given me an incredible bark and this nice little sweet undertone. So man, I'm ready to build a sandwich. A lot of people are just gonna eat this just like this, and that's fine, but you know, I was introduced to this by eating pulled pork sandwiches with that North Carolina vinegar sauce, so that's what I'm gonna be doing. Now, I did go ahead and warm up the sauce. The smell is just incredible. This just goes so good on pork. And I don't have any fancy buns here. I'm just going at it with what I have. These are actually keto-friendly buns. I'm gonna pile this high. Oh man, I can't wait to dig into this. And now, just a little bit of this vinegar sauce on here. Before that gets down to that bottom bun and makes this soggy, I'm gonna dig in. So I hope you learned something today. I hope you got something out of this video. I hope it helps you and in some way makes you have a better day of barbecue when you do pulled pork. So whether you're a newbie, maybe you're somebody that knows a lot more than me. I know those people exist, quite a few of them. Just enjoy barbecue, have fun with your family, and eat some good stuff like this. And once again, thanks Wine Country BBQ for sponsoring this video. I really do appreciate that support, and I was honored to introduce them to the world. I know they're gonna sell a ton of pellets. They've got a wonderful product. Okay, enough talk from me. Cheers. All right, so I'm gonna tell you right now, that is gonna be hard to beat. I mean, I'm from the Chicago area. We have Italian beef sandwiches here, sausage sandwiches, all kinds of sandwiches. If you notice, I do lots of sandwiches on my channel. This is definitely not a native sandwich to Chicago, but this is a really good, really good sandwich. So I gotta try some more of this. Not try, have. I already know it's good. That's officially a 10. Listen, do this recipe at home. Put down in the comments, let me know if you've had this recipe before. Let me know what you think of it. Let me know if there's something better that you do. And tell me if you learned something new in this video, if there's anything that I said that may help you make a better pork butt next time. Take care, till next time, I'll see you on the next episode.